In today's video, I wanted to talk about the effect of mold on the immune system. So many questions I get with regards to mold are layered around why is it that everybody doesn't get the same symptoms? Why isn't it that just everyone gets breathing issues, or that everyone gets joint pain, or everyone gets skin issues, or whatever it might be? There's a few different ways to explain this, and the first way I'm going to explain this is because of certain genetics, okay? And so the way I would talk about this is genetics loads the gun and lifestyle pulls the trigger, okay? So we're all born with genes, 23,000-ish genes, right? And a lot of them are not encoded and won't be encoded for your entire life. But there are circumstances and issues that could turn on certain genes that predispose us to more symptoms. And so what they've found with regards to mold and things like mycotoxins or chronic inflammatory issues like celiac or colitis or autoimmune issues is that we find people have this subset of genes called HLA. Okay, so these HLA genes encode the innate immune system. So in English, what that basically means is you have two sides of your immune system. You have the acute side, the innate side, which is non-specific, okay? And then you have the adaptive side. The adaptive side of the immune system is you can think of it like has a memory, okay? So think of it like this. When you first ever get exposed to something that your body has never seen, it's going to take anywhere between 2.5 to 3 weeks for your body to encode an immune response so that it's going to remember it the next time. So that the next time you get exposed, it might only be 1 to 3 days for you to get on a full-fledged immune response to stop it going any further. Okay, so that's the benefit of having an acute immune system, because it keeps things at bay, not going too crazy, but then having an adaptive immune system, so if you do get exposed later down the line, that you can deal with it much faster. Okay, this could be, aching if we think of like the common cold or whatever it might be. So they're never all the same, but they have similarities that the immune system could tag so that you don't get sick every time, unless you have a weak immune system. So this is where we get on to HLA genes. So the HLA genes are responsible for coding this innate acute response, okay? So what should happen, let's say you get exposed to mold or biotoxins or things that come as a side effect of environmental toxicity, contaminated water, these kind of things. So what should happen is as they come into the body, and they can come in 3 different ways. So it could be inhalation, it could be ingestion through the mouth, it could be the skin. Right? So as that happens, your body will create an innate immune response in order to deal with this as quick as possible. Okay, it's non-specific, so it's generally going to do that until it can tell the adaptive immune system to come and deal with this more specifically. Okay, so what happens in healthy individuals that don't have these issues in HLA genes is that the immune system will tag it. The adaptive immune system will create memory and it will generally be cleared. Okay, so I'm making that very simple, but that's how it happens. In people that are susceptible, the first part happens where the innate immune system tags the immune response, but the adaptive immune system doesn't create a memory to this thing. So therefore, the innate immune system, the acute immune system just keeps firing. And this is what can lay the foundation to a chronically inflamed response. Because if you are someone who has a chronically elevated innate immune system, that's very degenerative of your body. And so I know that because it's part of my personal journey. I have these gene defects and I've had these side effects. And so what will happen is at a lower level in the cells is you will just do damage at a cell level, and then as this goes on over time, because your body can't tag these biotoxins or these mycotoxins, they will just keep moving from cell to cell, and the immune system will just get more aggressive, and then over time what happens is more tissue gets injured. So that tissue might be skin tissue, it might be joint pain, it might be respiratory for you. So wherever else you have susceptibilities in your genetics, generally that's where it's going to show up for you, right? So maybe some people have more autoimmune susceptibilities because we know mold has been shown to progress things like MS, for instance, or rheumatoid arthritis, or joint pains, or fibromyalgias. These kind of things are all made worse generally by mold exposure, which should make sense because all these things are chronic inflammatory responses where the immune system is an issue. So then put something else in that aggravates the immune system, but the immune system can't do its job fully. So it just adds another layer of inflammation. So what I want you to really consider and understand from this is that you're in a position where you can be exposed to different biotoxins from mold, mycotoxins. There's also endotoxins we could talk about as well, where we talk about bacteria and how they kind of work in similar ways with irritating the immune system and affecting us. So what I would say, what's a good thing to understand from here without going into too much complexity? Honestly, if you are having symptoms that you don't seem to be able to get hold of, you've had some sort of leak at home, or you've had a leak, maybe it's been remedied, but you don't know if it's done properly, or maybe you do genuinely have some mold around the windows or in the bathroom or on the ceiling because of poor ventilation, and you've noticed the progression of symptoms over time, but nothing diagnosed, and relatively other your blood markers probably look okay, but you're suffering. This would be the time to explore deeper to see whether you're susceptible with these HLA genes, and it could be done very simply. It doesn't even need to be that expensive. You could run something as simple as a 23andMe ancestry test, and then when you get the results, ask 23andMe for the raw data, and then just upload it into like a genetic detoxification software that can basically identify all them genes and any kind of susceptibility. This is something that in Mold Fix I'm going to go through in much more detail with people, because I think what we need to do is put things in order of the most effective way to help, especially if you've got mold. Because I was speaking to someone just yesterday who has spent over £3,000 on supplements testing for themselves, but yet the money really would have been best spent at home. Because if you think of this, your susceptibility, right? We find out you're susceptible when you have these genes. It's not about giving into them. You can down-regulate, you can, offset and these kind of things, but no amount of supplements that you throw at these is going to solve that problem if the main protagonist of the problem is still there. Right? Does that make sense? So like if mold exposure or damp water damage building exposure is present, that's probably 50 to 60% of your main problem that you need to solve. And what many people are doing is, instead of solving that issue or putting resources into that issue, then what they're actually doing is putting it into supplements, into diet programs, into exercise programs, all these kind of things, detox programs. And the reality is that will not do the heavy lifting over time. And I tell you that from my experience, because I thought I could outrun it or I could get past it or whatever it might be. But in reality, what I found to be true is that if we were specific in remediation of certain issues and being aware of them, then what you're doing, you're taking away that direct pressure on the immune system constantly. Then what you can find is that once that pressure has been resolved to a certain extent, you can then start working on building up the resilience of the body. It's not to say we do nothing, because I will teach exactly what to do if you're in an environment compared to if you're out in an environment, because they're different approaches. But what I want you to understand is that you really want to make sure first that resources, time, energy, money are spent in the right places. So just to wrap this up today, if you do have genetic susceptibilities, and there's more than HLA genes, and I'll go into that in more depth in Mold Fix, but these are probably some of the most prevalent. If you see people that are having issues with HLA genes and their ability to encode the immune system properly, these people are going to be a lot more susceptible to mold-based illness, endotoxins, biotoxins, these kind of things. So hopefully that was useful. If you have any questions, please post them below, and I will speak to you soon.